Now, I don't know if I shared these with you the other day. But this is a typical grade sheet that to sort of take a gander at if you haven't yet. This is what one could look like.
Oh, okay.
So this was Betsy, and she writes on the front and back. So this is like 4 different. And I scan these and share these back to the team members so that they can get the feedback from the critic, which is very helpful to them. And then I prepare my own so that they get feedback from a couple of different sources.
Hey, Mark.
Hey there.
This is interesting.
What's that? What's that? I don't know.
So total, how many students?
So we'll review 6 students tonight, 3 teams, but in total I have 15 in the studio. Hey, Fodger.
Hey, Mark.
Hung, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hung, you could have been here today.
It's not my group event today.
Is it a bad hair day today, or maybe you didn't have a clean T-shirt to put on and join us here on campus?
He's going at you.
I brought you a cookie. Now I'm going to eat it myself.
Next one, I promise.
Your loss. Here you go. It looks like a really good cookie, too.
It's all yours.
Yep. Really good. So I'm ribbing him because he lives in Farmington Hills.
Okay. That's pretty
Which
close
is,
here.
yeah, like it's like 9 minutes away, and I've never met him in person. I only know Hung. Look how embarrassed he is. I mean, he doesn't even like pick up for me. Look at the background in his place, you know? Now, for instance, Stefan, who's sitting next to you, lives in Windsor, and so is John. But like Stefan and John are here. Nathaniel, who you're going to hear from tonight, lives in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So we give him a pass, right?
I get an excuse.
Bodger is in Ann Arbor, but he was here for the the first benchmark, and so they all try to get here at one point or another. I have Nora down in El Paso, Texas. I don't expect to see her anytime soon. But of all the 190 plus students, not including the numbers that I've met or not in this class, I've only not met 16. And one of them lives in Hong Kong, and he's in Toronto.
Oh.
It's the first time he's been back home in 3 years. And I'm like, I was going to have him here tonight, but he can't make it over. So that would have been fun. It was so interesting because when we would fire this class up, the sun would be rising behind him.
Right.
Whose dog is that?
Not mine.
My roommate's
I didn't
dog.
hear.
Oh. Because I
Are
know
you
Mark-
afraid of dogs, Roger?
Sorry?
Are you afraid of dogs?
No, it's just I know you have a dog at home, but you're not home right now, so.
No, I'm not. Hi, Casey. Feeling better?
A little bit. I don't want to die anymore.
See, this guy's on his deathbed, Hung. He's on his freaking deathbed, and he's here.
I'm gonna go help with the auction. I'll be back hopefully before my presentations, but they haven't even started setting up yet, so I gotta help with the board.
All right.
Hopefully I'll be back.
I'm getting residual, so.
Hey, Cody. Hey, Richard.
Hey there.
Oh,
So,
I'm +1 today.
cool. You get to see what we've got so far, man. You did see the previous project.
Okay.
Not sure. Yeah.
Was it?
okay, I just unmuted mine. Maybe turn the volume way down on yours, too.
I need to sit on this thing. Okay. Marco spilled his coffee on it. Did he really? Was it by himself? He did or almost did.
Okay, let me try and resend something to Trevor.
Is Professor Farrell going to make it tonight?
I don't think. He's kind of bummed. He said he might make it by 9, and I explained that we're probably going to be done by then. Nora, can you hear me okay?
Hello? Yes, yes, I can.
You can hear me
Hello?
okay, Nora?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, we're still missing Caitlin. We're missing Andrew. We're missing two more. Here it is. Desmond. Okay. Well, we're going to need to get started. I want to welcome you all to the second evening of Benchmark-2. Tonight we have Jason Yum from our faculty here at Lawrence Tech joining us, and I'm really excited to meet with him tonight and to hear his sort of feedback and his sort of interest in your work as it relates to the Comp Design Studio. So welcome, welcome to our class, and thank you for coming in. We're looking forward to this. And I do not believe that Professor Dan Farrow will be here tonight because he had another commitment. So he has pledged to review the YouTube video of tonight's class later, and I mentioned that because I want to prompt you all to do the very same, so that when we sit down on Tuesday of next week, which will be the 20th, you will have your particular group session and listen to the feedback that you got that evening, and to watch your own presentation so as to help see the sort of virtue of it, and also maybe to help you understand how there are places and ways to improve your own verbal and graphical presentation. So reviewing it, unique to the online experiment here that we're in, is something that you should take advantage of. And I will do the same thing. Also, for the four team members, for the four groups rather, for the four teams that met with Betsy Williams on Tuesday night, I shared with you all the feedback, right, that she gave you in writing. So I want to make sure that you all, if you presented on Tuesday, got that. Can I have a thumbs up or a wave? Yes, good. Thank you. If you did not get that, please let me know. Similarly, Jason has agreed to complete the paperwork, the grade sheet for the three will go through tonight, and I will share those with you as soon as I get them back. And then on Saturday, I will sit down and prepare the entire studio's grade sheets for all 7 projects, and let them sit overnight, and then look at them again on Sunday afternoon and share them with you then, so that you get the feedback returned to you, quite honestly, as quickly as I can. So I just got a note from John saying he was getting feedback from Jason's microphone. So you guys know how to, Stefan, do you know how to deal with that?
Yeah, sounds like. Is it better now?
Is that okay now, John? Or was that hung? Okay, thank you. Super. I also want you to look ahead. If you look at your calendar, like I said, on Tuesday, the 27th, we'll spend another evening in a feedback loop, right? Talking in general, like we are now, talking synchronously. And then we will have individual group conversations, starting with tonight's last presentation first on Tuesday night next week. And then we begin the crunch, which for you begins, honestly, the week of Monday, March 26th. And we will have pencils down on Sunday, April 22nd. I know that sounds a long way away, but it's actually just a month away. So pencils down is on Sunday, April 22nd. That gives you a night or two to get some sleep, to look at your slide deck and organize your notes, and to plan the script of the presentation so that it stays within the 9-minute allotment that you'll have. when we present on Tuesday evening, April 24th, and Thursday evening, April 26th. Many of our previous critics have agreed to participate in the reviews. I need to circle back and re-invite them and make sure that they're available on a night that works for all of us involved. And then finally, we'll end the class on Tuesday, May 1st, with a wrap-up session that reflects back on Benchmark-3 and the class in total. And I make some closing remarks at the beginning of the class on teaching and the profession, kind of a parting shot. I want to go back to April 24th and 26th, the night of those reviews. I also want to make sure that you're alert to the fact that Hell Week really kicks in between the 13th of April and Sunday the 22nd. So that is Hell Week. So we actually do not have any classes scheduled during the week of the 16th. I do not hold class on the 17th, nor do I hold them on the 19th. If you do want to visit with me, you're certainly welcome to do that. And I will only prepare then a hangout if you ask me to. But I figure at that point in the semester, so late in the term in terms of when your work is going to be finishing up, I'm the last person that you want to talk to. And that doesn't hurt my feelings because that's the week I get to watch old Law and Order reruns that I've missed. So Hell Week is really the week of the 17th and the 19th, okay? So really, in the time that's left, it's a very short, compressed amount of time as it relates to our studio, but there's also a ton of work that you're having to bring along with respect to Professor Farrow's lab, and I think April 5th is a big deadline for you, so make sure that you're looking ahead in his section. So, are there any questions about that look ahead? Okay, hearing none. Tonight we have Stefan and John presenting. So, Stefan, since you're controlling that screen, do you want to go ahead and do what you got to do to upload that? Let me get the clock started. And I should.
You're going to screen share? Is that right?
All right. Give me 1 second. Let me just share this. All right. So, hello, everybody. My name is Stefan, and I'm with John, and this is our comprehensive design project for Brush Park. An overview of all of the sections that we're going to be covering. And so John, you want to talk about the site context?
Sure. Do you want to? Okay, so this is our site context, the macro site analysis. So this is just showing different venues that are in close proximity to our site. Our site is right in the middle, the orange there. If you want to go back one slide, sir. So this is showing the immediate site context, just showing that this is Brush Park, and there's quite a bit of new contemporary residential and mixed-use construction going up in the area. And as well as that, there's also historical mansions that are still in the area. So kitty corner to us is a famous mansion, residential mansion, and then to the west of us there is another one. Next slide. Next slide.
So I'm just going to take how we came up with our principle or with our design concept. We took cues from what in the vicinity, especially as John mentioned, we have the two that are close to our site. So we wanted to take focal points that we can and incorporate those into our site. So we started off with the blocks and we started removing spaces. And that's how we ended up with the L-shaped design. Number 4.
So this is the bioclimatic issues. This is simply a illustration showing that we did energy models using 3 different shapes, and at the end we see that the L shape had the lowest energy use intensity. This is comparing with all the same square footage, overall square footages for the gross floor areas, and we found that the L shape has the lowest energy use intensity. So that is the shape that we went with. This is quickly just showing building footprint orientation and aspect ratio. For the most part, the site context and the building program sort of facilitated what our footprint orientation, that's the site, made our footprint orientation what it is. And then the aspect ratio is the L shape plus different building protrusions showed that. And then so for the surface area, again, that's our surface area, and just comparing it to what the preferred is from the textbook, and we're pretty close. This is daylighting, just showing at the bottom of the chart on towards the left, we're at about 30% window to wall ratio, which is under the ASHRAE 90.1, which would be 40. And then on the right-hand side, we're showing that we would like to use, we're going to incorporate a site water harvesting for gray water usage pump and storage system. This is the psychrometric chart. We went over this before in the other presentation, but basically one change that we're going to make to this after speaking with Vero is we're just going to get rid of the high thermal mass night flushed, because with CLT flooring and walls, the density in the CLT isn't such that night flushing is really possible or economical. So we're going to just continue with the sun shading of the windows and site water retention for gray water.
So this is just our follow the line to see what our buildings, just what we're compliant with, and what our fire separations are, and our occupancy for the building. So for structural planning, the to go with was a podium design, where we have the parking level and the first floor, and we decided to go with mass timber for the residential units above. So this is just a little bit of just data that we sourcing our CLT floors and walls. So for structural framing, we're in the parking garage, and exterior the comment with the corridors, or sorry, with as our load-bearing members as well, with transfer beams to pick up the load from the exterior walls on the first floor. The first floor is much of the same. We can continue to pick up the loads of the residential floors. So for the residential floors, we kept it with right now 3-ply CLT load-bearing walls, allowing for a shear wall system using CLT as well. I believe it's 9-ply CLT floors in between the levels. So this is a typical plan for between floor 2 and floor 4. Floor 5 has been reduced. So for our roofs with 3-ply CLT roof. And this was some of the reasons why we chose to go with CLT, how it's renewable, it's environmental material.
So for our basic HVAC integration, for each unit, each residential unit, they'll have a magic pack, electric magic pack with an ERV in every unit. And then for the corridor and public spaces, we're going to have a VRF system with ERV as well. So the idea of using the electric magic packs for the system is that we could then offset as much as possible that electric use with PV panels on the roof. And then for the VRF system, we're thinking a 3-pipe system so that we could have different zones. through the public spaces. So this is a basic plan for a typical floor plan, just illustrating that you have air handling units in stairwells, corridors, and different public spaces there. And then there would be refrigerant lines running from the main mechanical shafts to those air handling units with ERVs in those areas as well. And then this is a basic suite HVAC plan showing the Magic Pack and the ERV in an enclosed HVAC wall build out just off of the balcony area. So off of the balcony area, that allows us to have air intake, large grills facing inwards to the balcony, so they're not facing street side, and then it also keeps it furred out in a wall there. So this is our envelope materials. We're going to have two basic different exterior wall types. One wall type is illustrated here in the middle, which is a wood-studded cavity wall with rigid insulation outboard. And between those two basic layers is going to be our air, vapor, and moisture barrier, which would be like a peel and stick, blue skin, non-permeable. And so underneath that, it's showing the vapor profile. Because we have a non-permeable membrane layer, it dries both inwards and outwards out of that area. And then for the main materials, do you want to talk about that later? The cementitious?
We'll pick that up elevations.
Yeah, okay.
Another element that we wanted to incorporate is for our screen shading to use the bimetallic window screens and to give it a new material that actually surrounding in the environment. And we'll where exactly we were proposing these locations.
Okay, so this is our site plan. Just going over this quickly, everything in green would be our lighting site planters. So those planters incorporate ventilation for the underground parking, skylights for trying to get some natural light into the garage, as well as green space, bushes, trees, and such. So you notice that we have a main corridor area in the middle that's separated from the parking areas with elevated planters. So the planters are undulating at 2 feet to 4 feet. And so it just creates spaces in the corridor that are separated from the parking area. You can also see there that there's a transformer station that is, again, separated from the corridor area with planters, and then bollards protecting it from any vehicular traffic. The main turning radius that's shown there is just to illustrate that the garbage trucks will come into the site just slightly and then be able to reverse and get out of there. This is a quick concept sketch of what those planters will look like. There'll be ventilation louvers on the front face, as well as on top a mixture of planting beds for bushes and trees, and a glazing on top for skylights with more ventilation louvers off the sides there. So just a quick concept sketch for that. It's also, okay.
Into the floor. So transitioning into the floor. For our parking level, we managed to fit 46 spots on the basement level, with the remainder on the first floor. We're just showing the circulation and the flow pattern for this level. We have the retail on the corner with an exercise room and building leasing office adjacent house, and the back end is with the building maintenance and mechanical rooms and necessary rooms that are required. We're just showing the spots that we need on the first floor. Transitioning to the second floor. So from the second floor to the fourth floor, we have a combination, or our floors are pretty much 14 rooms per level. That includes on the we have our 2 ADA accessible spaces. So we have 3 studios, 1 bedrooms, and two bedrooms. We also have the common room, double or two-story opening, so it's accessible from both the second floor and the third floor. Pattern repeats both on the second floor and on the fourth floor. Kind of transitioning to the third floor, it's much the same. So moving on to where the volume gets reduced a little bit, and we have on the top ends closer to the historic house, so you have for use by the tenants, and the back terrace is for our mechanical equipment. Quick elevations just to show where our facade breaks up. So we decided to go with fiber cement, as John mentioned earlier. These hardy board panels, just to kind of give it that, with the fact that we're using CLT and kind of be system. The thing about the equitone panels that we're using, we could allow for a lot of different patterns and a different modularity with the system that we have. So we're just kind of showing up where our fire separations are and per level. So we have a 3-hour separation between the podium and the beginning of the residential floors, and the 1-hour separation between the residential units. Also, the vertical penetration is a minimum of 2 hours fire separated as per the code. Our wall section, just and how we're picking up the flooring or picking up the CLT decks and the roof deck with the CLT wall system. Our final quick conceptual renderings. And so when we said earlier that we're just talking about the bimetallic screen as our encasing for the balconies, and allowing that to kind of create and give the building a little bit more, I guess, aesthetic appeal.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the parking plan, the ground floor plan, something. And then upstairs, one more. Do I have trouble getting into the bikes?
From the outside?
You go to the
That's outside only?
Yeah. No. Well, the bike stairs, you have inside access from the main lobby.
But how do I, from the main lobby, how do I get to? So I mean, I guess I have to go to the conference room.
No, sorry. There's a sign that shows there's a separation between the exercise room. There's a hallway that's. And then just outside that you have the dog wash.
And then trash and recycling is 3. But
if you go to the site plan, it kind of shows
on the west leg, the west side of that east leg.
Exactly. We didn't want to put the trash at a really far end out of one unit, like at the very end of the hallway. We want to kind of have it more, try to have a more centralized fence. But it worked out that it was, that room itself is going to be closed off on John R, but you have access to the back end.
Mm-hmm. Let me see a typical res. Wow.
I could zoom in if you'd like.
And the trash room with the east stair?
Yes.
Yeah. I just have those questions. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I was just simply one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just simply wondering. All right, sorry about that. Okay, I was just wondering that was there any specific reason that you chose those specific HVAC system?
We like the Magic Pack for the units because you wouldn't need to have centralized ducting systems through the hallways, and then it would also remove any need for like fire dampers going into each suite, which would be quite a number of fire dampers for 50 suites. And then so I think it just cleaned up our ducting system, and then also simplified zoning, so each unit can pick their own temperature, and then it also keeps track for the for the building owner, keeping track of like utility rates. So yeah, just for those reasons, pretty much. And then the ERV. So to have the ERV would just so the ERV would help with humidity as well as energy recovery. And then for the VRF system, we thought it would just be easier so that you would only have to run refrigerant lines up and down the corridors and mechanical ducts. And then the 3-pipe system, because my understanding is that then you can have different zones with a 3-pipe rather than a 2-pipe.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's also it's better that when you start with the numbers, like because you chose this specific system, maybe you can say that you could like decrease the energy consumption by certain percentages, or efficiency got better by 10%, 15% by choosing this HVAC system. So that can be like a good hint for the reviewers or like an audience.
Okay.
Just a suggestion. Yeah. Can you show me the there was a 2 floor plan for HVAC. No. Yeah. The other one. Yeah. What's the top part like above those walls? Is it outside or?
Nothing's here. This is a balcony.
Okay.
So we set the foot for all of our grates on the, you don't see it on the outside of the door.
Okay.
So that was one of the reasons why we.
Okay. All right. I thought it was something else. So okay. This is no problem. Okay. And just for suggestion, bimetal thing is actually pretty interesting. You can set the temperature when it starts to move, and then when it closes. Actually, you can set it by your own standard. Like so, if you want to move it at 75 degrees, you can make it start to move at 75, and then you can start also make it move at 80 degrees. So it's possible. Okay. So I think it's you can use it more. What do I say? Like more actively. Okay. Right now, it's in the like just a balcony shading, but it's kind of to me it feels like passive way of using it. It's actually a very interesting material, and then it's like moving, so it gives you perspective and images that like your building actually start moving around. But right now you just use it for a balcony. Okay. So maybe you can use it for attaching it to actually window. Yeah, translucent something. That can be more interesting idea, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Could I ask you a question about the bimetallic panels?
Yeah.
Is there specific manufacturers that are looking into this now? Or?
Oh, I don't know that honestly.
It's still really new, sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. I think, but it has a lot of potentials in terms of design, and also for like a solar radiation control. I think it has a lot of possibility.
Okay.
The materials, the perforated skin, and then the hardy plank.
Okay, so here we have, so the gray is our creton, the 5 panels, large ones, and then we have for the balconies, we decided to go with the hardy ones, kind of accentuate the wood that we're using, and then originally the transom where we try to use the bimetallic skin for it, and the balcony has a screen that it would move around and kind of provide more shading. So over here on the floor line, we want to recess the balcony or drop the railing down a little bit. Well, not drop the railing, but the guard below the floor line, so just kind of a little bit more shading. And that's why you'll see those the lines kind of coming down a little bit more than the floor level.
Can Mark turn his microphone on?
I can't hear it.
I can't.
So it might help to prepare the wall section through the balcony. Because I think that reveals maybe more about the skin and the strategy for shading. And it also reveals the challenge that the balcony presents in any of these mixed-use buildings where you have balconies. You know, we never said in the program brief, for example, how big the balcony needed to be. We simply indicated where they needed to go and where they were restricted. And often balconies are dropped down 4 inches so that when snow does collect on them, they don't, you know, it's not as easy for that snow to migrate within the unit itself through the sliding doors or French doors or whatever. But they're also a structural backbreaker, right? In terms of how do you extend that slab out, whatever that slab material is, for 4 feet or 6 feet or whatever. And it's another backbreaker, another reason that it's a backbreaker, just not only in terms of the cantilever size, but also in terms of the thermal break. How do you handle that? So I think that would be kind of maybe more interesting, because I think that section shows us more about not only the materials, but this other sort of strategy. But I do still appreciate that you have 2 wall sections operating here, and link section. So that's something that I think you want to reconsider or add on to the package. Yeah. And I don't think I'm clear still. Maybe I'm just being dim on the way the transom, the way the balcony are operating as a shading device. And that's another reason I'm intrigued with it, but I don't follow the logic. And I think if you had the section drawing there, you wouldn't have to talk as much about it, because I think you could approach the section as a diagram or a drawing that's diagramming that process.
Okay, put out the shadows on it and see how it casts.
Yeah.
And then I really appreciated Jason's comment about talking about HVAC choices in terms of their, anticipated performance. That's really interesting, because as I was watching you guys talk about your the shape derivation of the L, you kind of started with the design drawings of the cube and then how the cube gets sliced and cut to achieve the L, but then you also kind of remake the case from a climatological perspective, and that actually was maybe more convincing. And so in the way that the whole design was explained as sort of a climate response, I think that's another way to start the presentation.
Okay.
To energy simulation in the end, or it's not yet.
Right. And I guess for me, the thing that I want to commend you both on is, can we go to the structural plans for a second? So as one of you said the other day, that's just not my strength, talking about maybe a technical aspect of the drawing and maybe relying on a team member for having that strength, or maybe even going back one plate to show the column plan. Like for me, this is a really clear structural plan, right? I mean, the columns are orange and they are where they are, and they line up with the column grid. And it's so easy to prepare this kind of drawing. And, so you all should do this kind of structural plan in your package for the April review. But, if the building is maturing faster than you as an individual team member are able to keep up with, sometimes preparing drawings like this to help everyone catch up is a great way to onboard everyone to all aspects. So thinking of structure as a diagram, the way you guys do. Thinking of HVAC and its distribution within the unit, the way you guys do. Reducing the subject of the drawing to the most essential sort of constituent parts, and then treating it as a graphic design opportunity is a really helpful way for everyone to share the same knowledge, whether it's between the team members or you know, with your audience. So I want to commend you for that.
Thank you. I think we've been working really hard.
And we're out of time. I think I would say that the elevations are still a little, they have a little funk factor going on. And I don't think they need to be realistic in that sense. I mean, I appreciate where they are. Can you pop them up?
Sure.
They just have an unusual weight and sort of saturation.
Yeah, it's the background throwing it off a lot.
And when we talk about the next program brief, there's going to be an option that you all can choose to define and detail and illustrate the elevation in even larger scale, so it can have more nuance and character. But this really doesn't. I mean, this is a good drawing, but it just lacks something. I can't put my fingers on it. The balconies are really a foreground element, and I think.
Yeah, it's the line, like when I'm not looking at it, it's the line ways that missing.
And then I look at those, and I look at the final renderings, and they have that same saturation, that same murkiness. Can we go to those for a minute? So I know it's not completely like rendered yet, and we hope that in the few weeks that you have left that you will get to that point, you guys. I might consider lowering this viewpoint a little bit more, so it's from the perspective of someone walking by. You may want to pull back a little bit to show more of Lorcan's building, and to not show so much of your building. And consider a couple of views to render, not just like two. I think, but thinking about bringing more daylight into this picture will help make the architecture clear. It will reveal it. But you guys are in a good position to accelerate through. I want to give you all a heads up when the next program brief comes out, which will be on Thursday, a week from tonight. There will be a menu of choices, options that have their own sort of point factor. So, you can do an energy modeling analysis of your building, and that will have an attributable point factor to it. You can do an enlarged elevation, for example, and so on. So there's all sorts of, you can do a ComCheck analysis for your building, right? So that from the Department of Energy. So there's all sorts of things that we'll offer up in our studio that allow you to sort of gain points. Again, there are options, and if you're kind of on the border with your numbers, with your grade numbers, this is a way to boost those numbers. And it's a way for you to get to know your building to an even greater extent.
Could I ask a quick question?
You may find that there are ways to help improve the presentation. But from where you are right now, I think it'll be real easy for you to pluck several options, advantage your work even more. So I tell you, it's actually a lot better on my screen, looking at it here, than it is on that screen with the fluorescent lights washing it out. So maybe I should stay here. Thanks, guys.
Could I ask a quick question to Jason?
All right, so the next one.
Am I muted? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
Ethan and Jess.
Yeah, I think John had a quick question.
Jess is in
I'm here, guys.
New Jersey.
Never mind.
And Nathaniel is in Indianapolis, like I said. So who's going to hold the microphone?
I will. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
1 second.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up, making sure everyone can hear me?
Can I get a sound check from you, Nathaniel or Jesus?
Yeah, I'm talking.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, one moment. All right, go ahead.
Jess, you want to kick us off?
Oh yeah. So, hi guys, I'm Jess for Jason who hasn't met me, and my partner Nathaniel. So we will be presenting a Benchmark-2, continuation of our design for Brush Park. So this is our table of contents. We'll break down with our site, floor plan, structure analysis, building form, building systems, and our sources are available at the end. So as we know, our site is at Brush Park. We have some context to look at John R. Apartments, Donaldson House. These are existing, and some of them play big roles in our design and for our future 2700 John Flats. This is our site with our dimensions of 167 feet by 154. We have a parking entrance in the back, in the alley, and we have our main streets, John R. and Alfred Street, with a 40 feet setback. And this is how we break down this entire site, our lot, with retail primarily in the corner of John and Alfred Street, parking as located on the other corner, and then we have a village courtyard, which is accessed from either ends of John R. or Alfred. So considering a conceptual idea for our design, we look into a geode primarily because it has this properties of an exterior surface with an interior layers. This plays a role in how we design our building form and also our courtyard. It also creates like a new public cut in a sense from John R. and Alfred, where the public can essentially walk through, or the residents themselves. And to look at our building form, we've kind of just used that cut to guide our entries and our forms overall. And we also create setbacks for terraces on the side facing the Donaldson House.
So with our parking, we have 42 spaces below grade. You can see we have one direction going in and around and then back out of the building. We try to utilize some of the dead corners and the unexcavated area under the ramp for particular requirements in the program, including storage. On the first floor, we introduce the lobby off of Alfred Street, where we have our leasing office. We introduce a lounge area for our patrons, and then a lobby space for their waiting. We have over 1,090 square feet for one retail and 1,673 for the other retail. Then we have a small power plant tucked into the back of the other side of our building with an additional 8 spots. Here's the entrance. I'm sorry.
Also, we changed, Mark, so you can see we changed some of the spaces for our ground plan. We've moved the bike storage dock washroom to be centered between the retail. And so we also moved the fitness that is now the lounge space. And also our courtyard new slice is more defined with seating areas and the ground floor.
We've also started to include a life safety plan, so we start to show our exits as well as our occupancy load per floor. You'll notice that on the left of each of the floor plates. So on our second floor, you see we've got a mix of 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and studios. We've started to create more of a relief on this exposed corner, introducing a one-sided corridor. This is going to let a lot of natural indirect light into our space, but also kind of gives a relief on the first floor into our village courtyard. This is an attempt to just bring some of that light, some of the public space into our area. As we progress, you start to see our terraces start to taper back. They create a really defining moment in our architecture, really trying to accentuate the setbacks of the Donaldson building on the left and trying to just relieve some of the height that our building has next to the Donaldson in order to respect it, but also kind of accept our building into this site. As we move up, you start to see some of our floor plates. They still line up with the floor below, but they are starting to taper back even more, giving us a lot of exterior seating opportunities for our patrons. And by the 5th floor, we've got terraces on either end of the building. We've got a really intricate stair system that allows the patrons to appreciate the building, but not be blocked by some of the shape of the building.
So in our structural analysis for our framing plan, we have a type 1 construction for the parking level and the ground. So this is a concrete podium. In orange, you see our main core elements are load-bearing walls, which carry on all the way to the 5th floor. And this is the ground floor, also podium type 1A construction. If you go back to one more slide. So every column is 15 by 18, I believe. And then the 2 columns on the corner are those columns supporting the cantilever floors above. So those are larger columns. Yeah, and then you'll see those columns go up with the V-shaped structure at the corner, north corner. And then everything above the 2nd floor to 5th floor is a type 3A construction, which is a wood type construction. So looking into more perspective, this is a corner of John R, where we have those cantilevers. Like a change we talked about, we made a glass wall on the 2nd floor, so it opens up visibility for the residents and the public as well. There's another. This is the elevation of John R Street. And this represents, Jason, this represents kind of like our conceptual with the geode, having this like hard surface for John R Street and Alfred, and having this like stepping back facade from the corner here on your left. You go to the next slide. You start seeing the facade kind of create more a zigzag surface. And the enlarged elevation, you have balconies for each studio, for each apartment, and we're using a hardy plank surface. This is a different kind of texture surface, color texture for this specific facade, and it would change for the other courtyard facade. So this is an elevation of Alfred Street. So this is where you start seeing the courtyard and also that difference in that interior skin. It changes from the texture and the color. And you also see the terraces and a respect to the Donaldson house next to it. This is a perspective kind of look into that. You see the terraces kind of stepping back and allowing, not blocking also the view for some of the apartments on the courtyard. And this is a section of how we understand those terraces and the spaces. So a lot of the amenity spaces have been moved to this side where the terraces happen, so that it kind of ties in together and you're experiencing different levels of amenities. We have the gym, the 2nd floor with the green wall is a meditation space, and this can all be experienced from the stairs. And this is a perspective of looking at that gym and the potential to go down to the stairs into the meditation space. And this is a different type of facade for that courtyard specifically, and you have the different orientation for that surface, which is Akoya cladding panels in a different color. So now both elevations kind of help us tie in to our conceptual idea. And then this section is looking into how the cantilever is held by that structure, and also the entry from that corner of John R Street.
So we tried to approach our ADA. This is our typical unit, a 1-bedroom unit. You see that we have our clearances for each of the different rooms. We're trying to take advantage of some of the modern architecture with free knee space underneath the sinks. We've got barrier-free entries into our showers. Our kitchen, we have free knee space as well as these retractable kitchen cabinets that give you more storage space, but gives you access to those higher spots that someone who may be handicapped cannot access. We've also introduced a solar system on the roof. We have 162 photovoltaic panels rotated 235 degrees southeast on our building. That would give us direct south exposure. This gives us over 69,000 square feet, 69,000 kilowatts a year, which would be a savings of about $7,400. This power would then go directly to our first floor, which would distribute throughout our building in order to just share some of the electrical costs that our building would have. Our HVAC system is a air to water heat pump system. So it draws air from the balcony, brings it into a singular hydro box unit, which would then distribute air from above, as well as distribute hot fluid through a radiant floor system. So we're catering to both a comfortable floor temperature that will raise the body temperature, as well as create a comfort zone in the air above a certain level. And we've got a diagram showing the returns. Here you see we have a larger version of that same heat pump with a light commercial system on the rooftop that draws air directly down our mechanical chases into retail, the 2 retail zones, and then our amenity space. There we are able to segregate each zone for each tenant, as well as distributing that air in the public space. We've also started to address how our water works. Everything is centrally located within the corridors to simplify our plumbing plan. We do have located in our basement a water storage area where we have 2 1,000-gallon tanks to store any rooftop rainwater for gardening. We have several terraces that we're proposing putting plants on, as well as a first floor garden. So we're just trying to reduce some of the stress on the water, as well as trying to partner potentially with groups like Detroit Water Brigade, where we can then distribute water and become a central hub, in which case we're trying to give back to the community as Detroit's growing again, just in an effort to bring social awareness as well as community back to our building, encourage that community village, and then also just giving back. And then we cite some of our sources. That is everything.
Okay, maybe go to the ground floor, the basement plan real quick. Just let me see that. And then the first floor. Let me just pause on this for a second. Oh, basement plan, please. Thank you. So, we've talked a little bit about this before, and in a building where the level of service is such that these homeowners will know the layout of this parking level, right? They'll know when to turn and how much, how fast they can go. They'll probably even have a space assigned to them. So their degree of familiarity increases the safety factor, right? But like, there are some moments where I think pulling in and out of like space 38 or 31, maybe even 18. I'm not convinced that 18 is, or even 20 is a viable space. And I think it's just a small issue. I don't know that you can solve it between now and the end, but it would help if like column C could slide west, just another foot to help people get in and out of their cars. Same thing with D, same thing with F, right? Same thing with G. I know I'm wreaking havoc in your lives by saying this, but a developer would want those spaces to be easy to out of, so that their building to live in. Like, I would love to live in this building, but I don't know that I'd love to park in it. And so that may be a deal breaker for the next cycle of like tenants. You know, that rumor, right, might get out there. So that's why parking layouts are really an important thing. And of course, you've heard us talk about how parking drives these buildings in so many ways. It kills buildings in so many ways. So parking is something that we take very, very sort of seriously in that regard. And it might help to do another layover. Can you go up to the top or the next plan? Yeah, so this has gotten to be really interesting here. That dog wash area that kind of bisects the two retail spaces ends up becoming a really interesting moment, because it works for you in terms of your HVAC distribution, as I think I understood you.
Yep.
It helps keep things simple, and it really does help you open up the gap between the nuclear plant or the one mechanical plant and the rest of the building, and maybe the space is actually even better than we had imagined it. So, kudos to you for really making that happen. I'm wondering if the line weight is a little dark on that paver system that you're showing there. That might be something that if you could back off or punch the colors of the spaces themselves to make them read more clearly, more legibly, that may help as well. I also think that if you indicate cars in some of this plan, at least, it helps make it clear that it's a parking layout. It's not entirely clear. And then lastly, the terraces were sort of this initially quirky thing, but now I'm kind of buying it, right? Now I'm seeing them as kind of the private entry and exit for the residents. It's a way to get into the city from the exercise room or the recreation room, and it's a way to get back into the building, through rather than just come. And you get your exercise when you do it, and you get changing vistas and views when you do it, and it works to solve the massing. So there's some really intriguing. You've really made lemonade out of that thing, and some really sort of aspects to it. So I'm really delighted that you actually cut a rendering there, that you made a drawing of that. But now I'm also, can we go to level 2? Now I'm also thinking that mechanical room and glass corridor is it's no slouch either. That's really turned into kind of an interesting little moment, and you may want to. You may even want to widen that corridor a little bit, like to create a little nook or an alcove, so that people can sit there and engage with the street. That might be kind of a funny little thing, a funny little moment. And if I think about like the architect like Jim Sterling or even Gunnar Burkertz, who's not from here originally but practiced here for a number of years, like they would paint that mechanical room like red or blue. Hardy Holtzman and Pfeiffer would do the same thing. They would graphically color code that as mechanical, so that when you walk by on the street, you'd see that and you kind of you were supposed to smile, like you would be in the know on that. So I think that's good. Great. Those are sort of my quick observations. Maximum occupancy. I don't mean to pick nits, but it's really maximum occupant load. I'd like you guys to get disciplined to separate those two words out. They actually, occupancy has to do really only with use, and occupant load has to do with the quantity of people using that use.
Okay.
So if you could change that on those graphics, I think it would be a lot tighter.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Just a couple of things. First of all, I like the gesture that your that stepping back side part in the floor plan on the left corner. So that whether you intended it or not, that stepping back mask can give a lot more better lighting condition on that spaces adjacent to the courtyard, so that in the first floor they will have more daylight. There's a more possibility just for more and better daylighting conditions. So if you run the illumination simulation later, then you will see the clear differences. So I think that's the beneficial by your design. And also, can you go back to the HVAC part? Okay, what was this orange line for?
So that is drawing the fresh air into our unit, because we were trying to give as much glass to the patron. We were trying to free up that mechanical space closer to the corridor.
Okay. And like, do you intend to use that radiant floor heating and cooling for all of your floor plan, or just for that living room area?
All of the floor plan.
Okay. I'm a big fan of radiant floors and radiant floor heating and cooling system. So sometimes just using radiant floor and heating, sometimes that's just enough. And then usually also when you use radiant floor heating and cooling, that requires more capacity and then a bigger water tank. So which requires a bigger mechanical system spaces. So you might just want to double check if it fits into your plan. So sometimes it requires just larger spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And also go back to the PV panel. Have you just curiosity? Have you checked the return of investment? Like how long does it take to pay back? How much does it cost to install this amount of panel, and then how much does it payback period?
I started to research it, and then kind of stopped. I got a little nervous looking at the price tag.
Okay.
So it'll take a little while.
Some companies actually, they provide a calculator. So if you can find it, then you can just put the numbers like how many panels you need, and then they will automatically give you the number of payback time. Usually it's very long, but yeah, it's worth to try. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? Nope.
Is that all for today?
Hey, Nathaniel, this is Cody.
Sorry.
Hey there.
What efficiency did you select for those solar panels in that? Because there was like a 12% efficiency, and then there was a 19% efficiency.
I used the autofill for that one. I didn't know how to identify that right away. So in the effort to just show a starting percentage, I just used their standard, what they pre-filled. A lot of that was pretty accurate to begin with, especially with the array tilt, with the system loss. All that stuff was pretty accurate.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Can you guys go to your unit plan? Is this a typical one, or is this an unusual one?
This is relatively typical. We're starting to make our floor plans more consistent. So you start to see that recess in the corridor, just to relieve the entry piece from the corridor. All of our one bedrooms have 2 entrances into the bathroom. The kitchen is all L-shaped, so it's relatively typical with unique exterior walls. It got really quiet real quick.
About the nook and the kitchen?
What's that?
About it?
About what? What are we talking about?
The nook and the kitchen and the size of that relative to everything else. It just feels like to me that the nook area and the space around it is like equivalent in size to the living room, and the kitchen is indeed an endlessly efficient. And you even show us, what it might look like as a compact unit. But I'm wondering if the kitchen could actually be a little like longer, and the nook slide closer to the window grouping, and maybe it's just a little like cafe table with 2 chairs, or a square table with 2 chairs, or maybe 3 chairs instead of 4, so that you would have more counter space. You might even have an opportunity for like a Granger cart on wheels with a butcher block on it, or an island. So that might be something that you do an overlay for. And I don't think this is a backbreaker, not like the lame-ass suggestion I was making a minute ago about the parking floor, because I think the improvement of the kitchen is maybe worth doing, and consolidating the nook into maybe that corner, or just simply closer to the window. I think the kitchen in these units makes them,
Yeah.
This is where people are going to hang. Only 1 or 2 people are going to sit on the couch, honestly. So there's a lot of area, especially when you walk right in, that's like not programmable. And if there's any way that bigger, or if you can add more closets to store things in, that takes away some of the floor space, but that makes the space as a apartment easier for them to use, people like me to move into.
Sure.
So that may be something worth thinking about.
Great.
I understand why the bedroom door swings out, but I would rather see it swing in. I think one of the things that you've done to make this happen is you've decided that this is a 2-door bathroom, which has its benefits.
Most our units are actually bypass, or not bypass, but sliding doors.
Right.
The ADA room is unique in that scenario.
Yeah,
So,
right, because you got to have the swing door.
Yeah.
And then the ruffled potato chip, right? The potato chip skin on John R. That's actually pretty special. But it's not maybe illustrated by your words and by your diagrams and by the drawings as clearly as it should be. So this is something that, I think you need to think harder of convey this for all, because it really takes the traditional mixed-use building and makes kind of architecture out of it in a very provocative and compelling way. And if there could be a narrative or a story that explains why it's happening, what these angles of incidence are, what the benefit to the unit is within the crinkle, how does one get to the interval of spacing, that you come up with, you know what I mean? If there's ways that you can unpack this ruffled potato chip a little bit better, I think it'll, and why it's happening here and not everywhere. I think if you tell that story a little bit more convincingly, this will really be a good aspect of the project. So that's really all I have.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we have, and Richard's away, right? Richard's not here. Well, there you are. I didn't. You were literally. I thought you were here, and you were literally like eclipsed, right, by Cody. Yeah, let's do that. Let's take a break. We'll be back at 7 o'clock. That's a good idea. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Trying to tell me anything here?
No, I didn't say that.
So after now and then until the April, they get to have election result based on.
Yeah, and the groups that we saw on Tuesday night were a lot weaker in some ways, and I'm feeling like they will want to carpeting, like a nylon commercial grade carpeting, can last 10 years in place. It gets that kind of turnover. I mean, if they clean it with each, tenant change, and homeowners take care of it, they don't stain.
Like we tell our clients, like you're gonna get sick of the product before it wears out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good point. What I like to do is, if I have a room, and I'm going to exaggerate, but if I have a room this big, I want to put a carpet on it like that, so that you get like a foot border around it, where you see the concrete floor or the wood floor around it. So I'm not having to rip up the shoe molding in order to its area rug.
We do that in the house.
And you can put a nice like commercial grade hem around it, and that works out pretty well. Okay, so Casey maybe went back upstairs. Nope, he's here.
Yeah.
We were waiting a long time.
Oh, no one's gonna see me.
Okay, what do I have? This is weird.
oh, it's because I'm screen sharing and I'm looking at you.
There we go, that's better.
Boy, after.
So do I have to turn my volume?
Can everyone hear us? Give us a thumbs up.
Oh wait, hold on. I got my sound.
I can't even see the picture. Can everyone hear us?
Did they say it? Because I didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds like
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
Go ahead.
This is working.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Jason. I'm Cody. This is my partner, Richard.
I'm Richard.
This is our age restricted housing work we've compiled for this evening. This is our site down in Brush Park area in the Midtown area of Detroit. Here is our context map. This map kind of helps you locate all the different needs in the area, and it also outlines the half-a-mile walking distance to common use amenities, which is outlined in the LEED criteria, which is very important to the overall project, and will contribute points towards that. Please, next one. So we set up some main goals. As I mentioned earlier, the LEED criteria, we have a sustainability category. We have a universal accessibility category, and then we have a baby boomer culture integration category. And we use these goals to kind of guide us as we continue to work through the work. In the sustainability category, we looked at passive heating and cooling. We're going to continue to pursue a LEED Platinum rating. We incorporated a green roof and make sure it's biologically positive. And then incorporate a living machine. The living machine process, we calculated out the capacity for our living machine on site, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I can tell you right now that the capacity is around 12,000 gallons a day in capability of water treatment. To give you an example of what the possible water usage for the building per day, using all 4 wash machines on all 4 floors, or I'm sorry, all 4 wash machines on all 4 floors 8 times in one day would result in about 1,400 gallons of water, which is not near the full capacity. So we would potentially be able to take on water purification from buildings nearby. This is a biologically positive eco master plan, something I've walked around the entire area and documented the biology and the health of the sites around our site in Rush Park. And we kind of use this as a benchmark for what we've designed in the building so far. Our massing analysis, we've gone through this in previous presentations. We figured out which particular shape as described what is commonly used in projects like this, and decided on the L shape building style, both for open space and solar advantages. So here we have an energy analysis along with a cost analysis. The L shape also providing or being one of the most advantageous ones at 57 cents per square foot over a year versus around $1.60 per square foot over a year.
So part of the criteria was to run like the ideal ratios, if you will, of the building through the Sustainable Practices program. So this just kind of shows the ideal surface to volume ratio, mass to surface core, the orientation, and then if we wanted to do natural ventilation. And then in terms of the sun angles, we wanted to incorporate these into the building to basically maximize the sun penetration in the colder months to account for heat gain, but then also allowing for sunlight during the warmer months, but not direct light. In terms of the structure, we're going to be using a heavy timber, which you can see the columns and the beams in the residential will be the heavy timber, and then vertically or north to south we'll be running trusses, just to allow for the span, and also so we could run our HVAC and everything through the trusses.
We get into some of the prior shown rammed earth detailing, some of the information we had brought up a little bit earlier in some of our presentations. This stuff was kind of the base for what we use for this slide, which is we developed not exactly developed, but using information we found from other sources and other developed rammed earth walls, such as Sire Wall, and put together a couple different sections and call outs to detail how exactly we would be integrating our structure into the rammed earth structural wall. So as you can see in this top one here, we have a heavy timber beam coming and being embedded within that rammed earth wall, and it is resting on top of a concrete bond beam, which is spanning like a 4-inch distance and is setting on top of 2 different sides of the rammed earth wall with a sandwiched rigid insulation foam board in between there. And we get a good R value in there of above 26. I can't quote that exactly right now, but also to mention that in the rammed earth wall of this thickness, it would take about 10 to 12 hours for energy to transfer between one side to the other, either way. So we also have on the exterior 2 coats of what is kind of a new product. It's a water-based rammed earth sealant, and that is no VOCs within that. We're sticking to our commitment to green materials as well, and good air quality in the area. We have the green roof detailed near the top, and as you can see in the diagram off to the left, how that load is transferred down through, and then the beam actually spreads out to bring the load along more surface area to so we no longer have to have these interior columns within the rammed earth wall to bring that load down. We get into the HVAC system layout. We have determined we wanted to go with a vertical stacked water source heat pump with 2 central, with a central chiller and a boiler. These run water through the top plane and the bottom plane of the building, and then it goes up through a vertical shaft, as you can see here, supplying all the units within the residential area with the needed cooled or heated water. And then our fresh air and exhaust air supply is the supply air is brought in from the courtyard area up through our center shaft and distributed to rooms. And then from the rooms, our exhaust air is brought back and expelled out to the sky. Up here in our unit layout, we have the vertical stack unit distributing the supply air and the exhaust and bringing the exhaust air back in through the unit.
For the garage, we managed to incorporate the turning radius as you see. So you enter here, you make a loop-de, go down here for your parking, and then out again. So basically, it's a one-way all the way through. We've been able to incorporate the 50 spots, spaces for energy storage, the water cisterns, which are also part of the living machine, the meter room down here in the corner, some of the lockers here and here, and then as well as the bike storage with the restroom.
We've made a couple small changes from our previous plan. We had to incorporate 2 more column lines, one here and then one here to make our structural system work, and we had to re-lay out quite a bit of our parking and figure that out. We get up into the main floor. We haven't changed much from the previous layout. Just a few more columns here and there.
Up on the residential, basically in the corners, the northeast corner and the northwest corner are the 2 bedrooms. Everything else is a 1 bedroom. So all of these guys, as well as all of these, are all typicals. The only rooms that change are here and here to allow for the lighting to enter according to the different seasons. So basically each level is assigned a season, if you will, and then the RAID diagrams that you saw before are the angles that are incorporated into here to allow more of the light into the building. Same thing up one, so you can see how these walls move here and here. And then again back down here. And then on the residential 4th floor, because we've already satisfied the requirements for the number of units, we open up this part as a terrace balcony, if you will, for the residents. And then we incorporate the green roof along here. And then up on the roof as well, we have a little decking, if you will, with the green roof and the solar array, as well as the chillers here. Oh, and then typical rooms, these are the ones that are on the southern corridor. So here, to show you how it's you're able to navigate pretty well with a wheelchair. Basically separating the 2 into the living and the sleeping areas. Another 1-bed typical layout, and then a 2-bed. And then just in terms of occupant load, these are all calculated out with the totals down here, and then the fire separations for the different rooms here. I'm trying to hurry through this. EGS diagrams for the residential floors. The site plan,
the site plan has changed a little bit. We just use the one we've got before to show our plan for the side area and our courtyard area. And then our on-site power, which I use the same program as Daniel to calculate out how much power we could potentially get. But in this particular instance, we used a 19% efficient solar panel. And we calculated we need about 150,000 kilowatts a year. So that's about 250 kilowatts per unit per month per year is how that comes out to. The solar panels are 2-axis tracking, and they're about a 42-degree tilt to match the latitude we are at. And that equals about a 93.4 kilowatt system. And with our battery storage in the basement, which provides about 9,840 kilowatt hours of backup power and power that can be stored during the day and then used back at night, which is really important with a system like this, if no net metering is allowed, which is still an iffy thing in Michigan right now anyways. So to have on-site energy storage for this is rather advantageous. And so coming out to around 153,000 kilowatts a year, and with current electricity rates at 16 cents per kilowatt hour, gives us $24,000 in savings each year. And then for the lead points, we have 49.5 documented points. So this is stuff we can back up with what we've done so far, and we'll continue to check things off as we move through. One example is the construction waste management. We take the square footage of conditioned space, multiply that by 4.2 pounds, which gives us 210,000 pounds of estimated construction waste from site. The soil dry, which is what we're using for the rammed earth, being used in the walls, exceeded the 60% reduction of material hauled off-site by more than 100,000 pounds. And that gives us a full 3 points, for example, for the lead criteria. And then back to some of the renderings we had from before. And that wraps us up for tonight. Yeah.
So the wheelchair, like in here, it basically shows it's the roll-up sink, so you can get up in there. And the next one. So this one, only one of the rooms has the ADA sketched out for you.
Yeah, these are really strong floor plans.
You know, I think anybody would want to live in one of these in one of these layouts. So there's very little I'd say that I think would improve them. I think there is opportunity for kitchen islands in all of the galleys. They again could be a choice between like an IKEA purchase that an owner could provide, a Grainger order, you know, an island on casters or wheels, or it could be a proper built-in thing that would need to conform to the ADA requirements. But I might suggest to indicate them on the plans. Not to indicate a sink in them, to take the burden off of the kitchen layout, because I actually appreciate the concision and the efficiency of the galley kitchen here, but just to give us more cooking space and working space, and a place to eat at, which I think an island like this in these smaller units would benefit from. And wherever it's possible, maximize the closets, if it's possible. You know, the bedroom closet is kind of modest here in this one, in this layout, and in the one bedroom, it really doesn't even kind of have a closet.
If I'm not mistaken, in the lower bedroom.
Let me see.
He was talking about
Which one are you talking about?
right there.
Oh yeah, this one doesn't have a closet.
So
Depending on how you do the couch and the little closet that you have there, you could actually have a closet on the wall that separates the living room from the bedroom itself. So I think there's ways to do that. You could also relocate the door. Entry closet. So that's another way to. Let's go back to the unit plan. The the unit plans, this sort of remark that you made about the seasonal virtues of the plans kind of feel really original and innovative, you know, in a dumb, clunky, like age-restricted building. It's so special, I think, that the agenda of the building, which is to make a comment on how to improve the role of architecture in the question of energy consumption, is also able to remind us that the very thing that's driving the building is something that we should appreciate while we're living in it. So that to me is really, really unique, and it's really special. And it probably needs a diagram. With text that says autumn and spring and summer and winter.
I have it labeled in Revit.
Yeah, but I mean, it needs to be that I don't want to say makes fun of the idea. It really emphasizes the idea because the whole notion, right, of these outside realms bring their way into the building mass to allow us to benefit or experience that stuff is pretty spot on. I'm still really attracted to that. The graph parallel line. Maybe you do it just in the common areas, not in the units. And I don't know. Can you comment on what you were?
It's just basically the floor, floor in there. So we're going to color this up.
I think the plans also need for this next go around there indicate that the ground floor plan. Yeah, probably imaginative layouts of the ground floor as it relates to the way that the street is sort of to that same idea that was happening upstairs is kind of an active thing happening down here. About this wall that pushes out and gives back or recedes back from the normative line above. Really imaginative. It's laid by. It's the kind of place that you want to live in, and you know that's when you think right of senior living, senior house. It's really admirable. Yeah, I think that's all I had.
Yeah, can you go to the section?
Can you go to the
section? Yeah. There was a vertical section. Yeah, this one. What were you using for finishing material for indoor side?
Indoor side is also
Exposed? Oh, okay. It's the soil. It's not just a pure soil, right?
right. So also I use the same kind of formula that sorry what I use, which is around 18% clay content, 6% Portland cement, 70% site soils, and they have steel reinforcement in that as well.
Okay.
For their 100-foot tall wall, they use a 10% Portland cement mix, just because of the fact that it was 100 feet tall in this particular room, about 42 feet tall.
Okay. Yeah, like, you know, since we discussed about this one before, that I was thinking about it, and then maybe we can use soil has another capacity as a humidity controller, and that it's been reported and published in the International Journal. I did an experiment by myself. So yeah, but it's Korean, so yeah. So the idea I was thinking is that maybe for some like one section of the wall, like a one just the surface, then you can you can use like a finishing material as just a pure soil that to maximize its humidity control performance. right? Yeah, so I think that can be another idea. And also, I think you mentioned that you can think you are considering the lead point by construction waste on site, right? Okay, yeah. So a few days ago, I read an article about the radon emission, yeah, from the soil, and especially in Michigan area. And that especially, actually, the southern part of Michigan has high emissivity than the rest of the area. So maybe, yeah. So you need to think about it. Yeah. And also, I think you can still get some other points like if you use materials within a certain distance, then you can still get the points. So instead, right. But I'm talking about the different category. Yeah. So you can have another chance to use like soil from like certain distance, then you can get it, and then you can have some 1 point or 1.5 point. Yeah.
As much soil as we put on site. I don't think we'd be able to use all 70% from the site. I don't think we do the right kind of soil. And also, I think just clay on site.
Yeah.
Using clay on so, if we can get that, I'm thinking about this question. And so with the unit would have a rammed in places, right? Yes. So like a unit might have one wall.
One wall, yes.
It might be an outside wall, for example. Yeah, so this one would just be this wall. This one doesn't have it. None of this has got it in the top left. Mm-hmm. And would you do the two coat sealant on that stuff too, on the interior? No, because of the moisture content there, the relative humidity in the bathroom. From what I've read, it hasn't been an issue, but I guess for safety reasons. And there is materials durability mentioned in the need as well. It doesn't quite cover rammed earth, but in that instance, I think it would be smart to apply it there. And the rammed, and so the stuff of the rammed earth wall actually comes from the excavation spoils of this site. Yeah. So I mean, I think I guess that's what I mean. So I guess
so part of me thinks like, you know, there's a small market that might actually like as an aesthetic for their unit. They might really want to live there. And then there's like a part of me that says that there's lots of people like would definitely live there, but Tracy and I might not choose there because that's maybe we like white walls for let's just say. So part of me wants to remind you that these kinds of provocative are compellingly and convincingly, and so I don't know that the rammed earth process is clear as a story how it happens, and if these want to be standalone plates, maybe you need some diagrams to talk about that. I think you need some interior that talk so that we can imagine full and college diplomas hanging on a rammed earth wall. What is living like? What does it look like living there? How does that? What is I think that when you do these kinds of things, you're sort of obliged to tell the story a little bit more carefully. We saw like an elevation of like the mechanical plant, but I don't think you included them.
Yeah, that's about it there.
And so I feel like that needs to be in the next package too. Yeah. All of the elevations, the courtyard elevations, A, because it's a requirement, but B, This particular building is solution formally as a silhouette line, and it's one of the few buildings in the class that's kind of trying to like keep a spot to the work next door or Beth next door in City Modern. So I think, this is one that's trying to hold its own. I think Nathaniel's and Jess is trying to. So there's some things about this particular building that help fit that context, and those elevation drawings will help tell that story more clearly.
Magnify that right down part, the HVAC.
This one?
No, this one.
Jane, this is comp design. Fourth year, some graduate students. All the graduate students presented on Tuesday night.
Well,
these are all seniors.
To me that you and UI are terminal units to each other.
Yeah, so one's going to be coming from the courtyard, and then the other one's going to be expelling out the roof.
Yeah. But in that case, you unit is right next to each other.
They're ducted, though.
That's all ducted.
Yeah.
Those aren't directly venting into the hallway. Those are just supply and return for the vertical stack water source heat pumps in the units. Instead of running something to the outside from the unit, we're bringing one central one central source to expel the building. So like the blue, fresh air each, and then from each unit is the exhaust air from the same system going back out, and then being and yes, shaft here. So this is to the roof and to the sky. This is the supply to all the units from the courtyard area. So it's pulling air from the courtyard into these ducts and then supplying them into each particular unit instead of drawing from directly outside the room and then expelling to right outside the room.
Okay.
The last thing, you may want to break out some of these renders plates, kind of all in the same plate thing. Like there's a quality of like being in a magazine, like in a periodical, that's familiar. Some of the images deserve kind of real estate. So you should think about the composition of these, how big they are, who gets to be next to, or what, who gets to be alone. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay.
Did we have any more questions? We had this muted. Did any of you have any questions? We had you guys muted.
Because you guys were being too dramatic. We wanted to keep you down. All right, thanks everyone. We will see you on Tuesday night.